train is fired up and ready to go. We got Harry, we got Neek. We're going to have a few special guests jumping in today, get the college ready for you as well. But Graziano is going to kick it off. The NFL season starts a week from tonight. The Super Bowl champion Eagles will host the drama-filled Cowboys, and Micah Watch remains very much in effect with the looming question of will he or won't he play. Candidly, will he or won't he even be a Cowboy by that time as we inch closer and closer to a resolution? Graz, what are we hearing?
I feel like there's been a little bit of a turn in the story to the point where, based on conversations we were having yesterday and last night, that a resolution feels like it might be pretty close. Now, what that resolution is, I think is still up in the air. It could be a deal between him and the Cowboys, a long-term deal. Sounds a little unlikely considering how little work has been done on that recently. It could be that he decides to show up and play on the fifth-year option, play it out, and then dare them to franchise him next year, which I think they would. It could be that he continues to sit out and says his back hurts. He went and got a second opinion on his back yesterday, so that could be preparing for that sort of argument. And then there's the possibility of a trade, which I think, a week ago I would have said was not a possibility. But now I think we're at a point where you can't rule it out. This thing has dragged on long enough. And I think there are teams that have called the Cowboys and said, are you interested? And I think when the answer used to be, no, we're not trading him, now it's like, well, what would that look like? And so, we'll see. But I think in the next couple days, maybe, by the end of the weekend, we could have some resolution on this one way or the other. I just don't feel comfortable predicting which way.
Of the weekend. So again, bear in mind, we are, and you see Mike Tannenbaum popping up on your screen here, Mike T, good enough as our resident GM to jump in with us on short notice. When we started getting this from Dan, we thought to ourselves, let's hear directly from Mike T. So as you hear Dan reporting that it's getting closer, take us inside the building. You have a sense of the conversations that would be happening both inside the Cowboys building and maybe others with this thing working its way towards a resolution. Give us a sense of what you expect here.
Sure, Greeny. From a Dallas Cowboys standpoint, outside of the George Pickens acquisition, who's on a one-year deal and obviously a very good player, you can make the case that, hey, we have a rookie head coach. We're in the first year of a rebuild. We have a quarterback that's under a long-term deal, but we've lost the DeMarcus Lawrences of the world, the Jordan Lewises of the world. And if we're going to rebuild and we can get multiple first-round picks and a good young player, we have to consider it. And ironically, Greeny, there is a gap in the schedule where there's a little bit of a bye week outside of Philadelphia and ironically the Cowboys, where teams like Green Bay, Tampa Bay, Detroit, teams that could consider trading for him, have a couple of days here where they could put together their best package. So if I'm Jerry Jones, I am calling those teams and say, hey, give me your highest and best offer within the next 48 hours, and we're going to get this resolved one way or the other.
All right, and so this is exactly the moment at which it gets done as we sort of consider the urgency of the situation. What stands out to me, Mike, in what you just said is, and we've had this conversation before, if in March the Cowboys had made the decision that Mike Tannenbaum is talking about, you know what? Right now, the Eagles look unbeatable. The Commanders are on the come up. We need to start this thing over again. Let's make Micah Parsons our next Herschel Walker. Let's trade him and build around that. That would have made sense to me. I actually was advocating them doing that. But we know that isn't what they decided. Right, Mike? We know that because Jerry Jones has told us that he himself negotiated a long-term contract with Micah Parsons and then sent it to the agent who told him to stick it you-know-where. So if they do decide to do this, Mike, it would be because it got to this place. It wouldn't be because that was their original intention.
That's exactly right, Greeny. And once TJ Watt got done, and we've talked about this quite a bit, it's $42 million a year. He's a great player. If they don't want to pay that bill, then go out and get as many assets as you can in return. And again, if Green Bay, as one of the teams that Dan has reported, is offering multiple first-round picks and a good young player, be it Edgerrin Cooper, Rashawn Gary, Devontae White, amongst others, then I'm calling Tampa Bay, I'm calling the Buffalo Bills, and I'm saying, I need your best offer. And to your point, Greeny, maybe I get a Herschel Walker type return. I believe in Brian Schottenheimer. I have Dak Prescott, and we rebuild. But it's fascinating that we've gotten here because once TJ Watt was signed, of all the deals, Terry McLaurin, Trey Hendrickson, to me, this was the easiest one to sign. For whatever reason, Jerry Jones
hasn't been able to do yet. We lost Mike T's feed, but I think you get a sense of where he was going to go with that. We could quickly put the picture up on the screen if we can of Micah at the airport yesterday. People made a very big deal. We've reached that point. I remember the helicopters flying over Brett Favre's place in Mississippi once upon a time, and now here's people spotting Micah Parsons at the airport looking in a rush. Again, Dan, we believe he's getting a second opinion on his back.
We believe he was traveling to get a second opinion on his back. That seems to be what we're being told. Yes.
That's their story, and they're sticking to it, for lack of a better way of putting it. Okay, so, Neek and Harry, you sit here, you listen to all of this. What's the first thing that comes to mind?
It's how poorly this has all been managed. Like, when you draft a player in the first round, your hope, you're dreaming. And it's also very unlikely. It's not that first-round picks could be starters. That happens. First-round picks could be good players or even great players. That happens. You got a future Hall of Famer, a guy who is on track to win some Defensive Player of the Year awards, a guy who changes games. The idea that you could trade him and get and we make the Herschel Walker comparison, but that's different. That franchise was moribund at the top. They were bad.
Yeah, I can hear five.
And this is very different now because this team believes that they are close.
Can see it.
And they have the hardest thing you need to find is a quarterback. They have one. So assuming that you can rebuild for something in the future, to me, seems like a horrible mistake, and it's all based on ego.
So when I think about the Dallas Cowboys right now, I think about the word disappointment because their commander-in-chief, Jerry Jones, is operating off emotions. Greeny, I told you a story about this morning, how one day I was about to go to the facility and I was about to go off on everybody. And I met with my pastor and he told me, how stupid can you be? To let your emotions get in the way of business. But that's exactly what Jerry Jones has done. So when you're an owner, when you're a general manager, you can't operate off emotions and let pride get in the way of business. But that's exactly what Jerry Jones has done, and that's why they're in the predicament that they're in right now. I agree with Mike T. This deal was easy. We've seen what Max Crosby had gotten. We've seen what Myles Garrett had gotten. We've seen what Jamar Chase had gotten. And we also seen what T.J. Watt had gotten. This deal should have been easy to do for Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, but no, sometimes when you want to rob Peter and pay Paul, when you want to do little slick things under the table, you want to do a deal with the player without his representation and try to, get by a little bit, you're in this predicament right now that you're in. Because Micah Parsons said, no, I'm not standing for it. I'm going to stand 10 toes down, and I'm going to stand up for myself and everyone else that comes behind me. I'm not going to be like the other ones. He chose to be different, and I commend him for it.
Yeah, I think that's the key thing to understand, right? The situations that we got resolved this week in Washington with Terry McLaurin and Cincinnati with Trey Hendrickson seems to have been neither one of those guys ever wanted to leave. They pushed it as far as they could, and ultimately they took the best offer that was on the table, even if it wasn't the offer of their dreams. Micah Parsons has pushed it beyond that, and he's had Jerry Jones' help in pushing it beyond that because neither side has wanted to engage recently. So yeah, I think it's fascinating. It's an example, I guess, of a player sort of knowing his worth.